How's it going, everyone? Welcome back in for another episode of the Boiled Out Podcast with Jake and Justin. I'm your host, Joe Menta. The Lakers took home the NBA championship on Sunday, and LeBron was named Finals MVP. Kind of expected most of this to go down, but let's get right into it. So, Justin, how close is LeBron to passing MJ as the greatest of all time?
So, yes, LeBron won the championship and won Finals MVP, but I must say Anthony Davis was incredible, and I personally think he deserved that Finals MVP. I think he was more valuable to the Lakers that series, had a better plus-minus. I just think he was more important to that Lakers championship team than LeBron was. But no, this doesn't even bring LeBron into MJ's – they're not even the same breath. Like, it is not even close. That Mickey Mouse ring means absolutely nothing. I mean, MJ has more championships, more MVPs, more Finals MVP, which is a record, more Defensive Player of the Years, more all-team first defenses, which is a record. He has more scoring titles, which is the record. He has more all-time steals. He has more times finishing as top 5 in the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year same season. I can go on and on. I mean, I have a list here. It's probably about 60, 70 bullet points long. Averages more points per game in the regular season and playoffs. He has beaten more 50-win teams in the playoffs, beaten more 60-win teams in the playoffs, which is a record. More times averaging 30 points per game in the regular season and the finals, which is a record. More assists per game in the finals by a non-point guard. He has the most points per game in the NBA Finals at 41 in 1993. I mean, the list just goes on and on. MJ has better accolades. He was a better player. If LeBron can end up passing him in these records later on in his career, because he still has a couple more years, then LeBron has a chance. But right now, LeBron isn't even in the same breath as MJ. MJ is the clear GOAT. He is the clear number one. But I would say LeBron is now the clear number two.
I mean, obviously, all those points are fair. I mean, I'm a big LeBron fan. I think he's already the GOAT. But if to put it into perspective of the public, I think at this point you have to have no lower than 2. I mean, there were so many people that had him at like 8 or 9 or not even top 10. I think like Paul Pierce said he was like not even top 10, which was stupid. And then he changed that when he won. I mean, I don't think this ring means as much as a regular ring because there's no fans, there's no travel. There was a lot of dodging. I can't even say that this wasn't LeBron's easiest path to ring, but if anything, he deserved it. He's had the hardest paths every single year. I mean, he ran into that Golden State juggernaut, the Spurs dynasty. I mean, those were two incredible, types of teams that he had to play in the finals. And I mean, I'm not saying he should have lost all 6 finals, but losing a couple of those finals is definitely not, I think something you can argue against with him and MJ. But I think LeBron's the GOAT. I don't think this ring necessarily puts him over the edge for me but to be honest, I think it's his second best ring he's ever won because I think 2016 has to be number 1. You can't say anything's better than 2016 because that was a normal season. He played the best teams and he came back from 3-1. That was the biggest challenge he's ever done. That's when you're arguing with LeBron as the greatest player of all time, that's the number 1 argument that you have to use is 2016 NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. But in terms of having this weird bubble, I mean, the physical toll that it took on everybody, this is an extremely impressive ring that I don't think enough people are giving LeBron credit for. Yes, he got to rest, but a lot of these other teams fell apart and mentally kind of broke down. Look at the Clippers. I mean, they choked hard, and honestly, I think the Clippers were more talented than the Lakers all around. And they choked. They choked really hard against the Nuggets, who the Lakers beat handily in 5 games. So that shows you who was more mentally tough. I mean, we'll see. The Clippers, I think, just made a really good hire with Ty Lue. I think he's a big upgrade for them. I don't think Doc Rivers just really gelled with that team, although I'm happy he's here in Philadelphia now. But I don't think he just didn't gel with that team. I don't think he gels with the whole Kawhi take. I mean, it seems like the players.
I think the issue wasn't Kawhi. It was Paul George. I don't know if you know this, but Paul George dated Doc Rivers' daughter.
That was
her pregnant,
that was a big
and there was
issue.
the whole issue there. So I think that's got to be awkward. I mean, imagine coaching, being in that situation. Doc Rivers was like, there's got to be tension in that locker room.
I definitely don't think it fit well. I
think that definitely played a role there. I think there was more off-court issues with the Clippers that kind of went undiscussed this season, and that is the reason they ended up choking. But they were clearly the most talented team in the NBA.
Oh yeah, by far. They should have at least made it. I mean, you could say you can fault them for losing to the Lakers in 6 or 7 games, but losing to the Nuggets in the second round is just unacceptable. But back to LeBron and the Lakers, I think this was a huge championship for his legacy. He's now 4-time champ, 4-time Finals MVP. 3 different teams he's won the Finals MVP for. Nobody else has done that, so he's got another ring in history. I think for the public to generally agree, though, that he's going to be better than Jordan, he has to win at least one or two more rings with the Lakers, and I think he can. I honestly don't see who's going to challenge them next year outside. I'll say this. I'll say it comes down to the Clippers, and it comes down to the Clippers probably, and the Nets, and possibly maybe the Nuggets if you really see the same growth out of Murray and Jokic, and maybe they get one more guy. But I think it could. I think right now, if I just had to, I know this is off topic here, but we're going to talk about that next. But I think the Nets and the Lakers will probably meet in the NBA Finals. So I think the Lakers are going to have a clear path next year. Just a few teams. It's just like this year. It's kind of down to 4 or 5 teams where we see that have a chance. So I think Lakers have a great chance next year as well. We'll get to that next. But in terms of LeBron being the GOAT, I think it's close. I still have him as my greatest player of all time, but I think for the general public to believe it, he needs at least another ring or maybe another MVP. I'd say 1 to 2 more rings or an MVP. You should put him over the top for everybody to believe it.
I think he needs to at least tie him in MVPs, and he needs to tie him in championships.
He should have tied him in MVPs this year.
I don't know. When you look at it, it's interesting because the narrative story about it, and you would think he would have gotten it, but then he didn't. I don't know. There's just some issues there with how the MVP voting goes. So MVP is kind of a controversial topic, but
in my opinion,
you can't dispute NBA championships. NBA championships, you have won. There is no voting in there. There's no bias. You won that championship. So MJ has more. So right now you got to give it to MJ in that aspect. So
I will agree with you on this, though. I think Anthony Davis should have won Finals MVP. I think outside of that one game where he got hurt, he outplayed LeBron in every game on both sides of the ball. But I just think
in the game
for the regular season,
you saw how the Heat came back and dominated that game when AD wasn't on the court. So I mean, I think that just goes to show how valuable AD is to that team.
Yeah, and I just think the MVP for the regular season should have gone to LeBron. But that was just how I felt about it.
And this is off topic, but when you look at as a Sixers fan watching the Lakers have success, I think that's a really good sign for Embiid and Ben because Ben represents LeBron a lot, and you can see the comparisons between AD and Joel. So I think with good coaching with Doc Rivers, they may be able to kind of replicate some of that stuff, and I think you could see a successful year for the Sixers next year. They can add some shooters just like the Lakers did.
Yeah. Daryl Morey better come over.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be one of the biggest debates in all of sports from time being in basketball now, but it's definitely something we're going to be looking forward to always debating now after this championship. So sticking with the NBA, I want to look forward to next NBA season. Jake, do you think the Lakers can repeat?
I really do. I think actually that next year, I was more concerned about this year, the first year with AD, than I was for the next year because this year, you know, LeBron and new teams, generally, they haven't really won. I mean, look at the Heat. They didn't win the first year. The Cavs, they didn't win the first year when they put together that super team. But the Lakers won their first year. And I know it was a weird year, but they still won. And I think next year they're going to come back with basically the same core. I mean, you might lose a few players, but I've been hearing rumors that possibly Chris Paul might come over. I'm not sure how excited I would be about that because he's kind of a ball-dominant player. He's sort of like a Rondo, but probably going to seek even more minutes. And I don't know about that move. He's a big salary cap hit too. I'd like to Lakers just keep the regular core, maybe add a couple more pieces of depth. But honestly, with this roster right now, they could easily go right back to the finals, I think, and repeat. And I know I said this in the last segment, but I think it'll probably be the Brooklyn Nets or the Miami Heat coming out of the East again. Depending on what happens with the Bucks. I mean, Giannis, I'm not sure what's going on. I think it's going to be a very weird year for the Bucks because they're going to be worried about Giannis leaving. I think that could be a very, very turmoil year for the Bucks this year because I think Giannis will leave. So I'm going to say it'll probably be either the Nets or the Heat coming out of the East. And I think it's down to 4 teams with the Lakers or the Clippers or those two. And I think the Lakers are going to go back to the finals and repeat as of this moment. I mean, there's still a lot of offseason to happen. Mm-hmm. Maybe something big happens. Maybe Giannis, for some reason is like, well, I want to go to Miami now. Or, somebody there's a couple good free agents out there that the Heat could pick up that would definitely help their chances. And obviously with Brooklyn, we have no idea how KD and Kyrie are going to mesh. They could be dominant or they could be a huge locker problem. We know those guys have big heads. So I think we got a lot more to think about. But right now, I'd definitely say the Lakers should be the favorites.
Well, you mentioned the Miami Heat. I don't think they may reach the second round next year, but there's no way they get past the second round. I actually think they lose in the first round next year because I think every team in the East is going to be getting better. You look at the Bucks; they're definitely going to be adding.
Well, I think the Heat could get better.
they have like zero salary cap room, and Goron may be leaving. So it's got to play it still by ear. You don't really know yet. But I mean, when you're looking at it, I don't think the Heat really are a contender next year. There's too many other good teams. But when you look at the Lakers, I don't even think they get out of the West next year. I don't even think they end up the number 1 seed. You look how loaded the West this year was. I mean, they had some very tough competition. And next year, you get a full year of the Pelicans with Zion. You get the Golden State Warriors. We don't know who the Warriors are going to be getting. The Warriors have Steph, Clay, and Draymond now, and they have the number 2 pick. They have Andrew Wiggins there. We don't know what's going to happen there. They could easily form a super team there. Who knows? Maybe they trade. If Giannis does leave, maybe they trade the number 2 pick, Andrew Wiggins, and a couple of the first-rounders for Giannis. Still to be determined. But
Hope not. I do not want to see
I
another
could see
Warriors
something
dynasty.
like that, and that could very well end LeBron's run there. You get the Mavericks. They were also in talks for Giannis, so maybe you team make a big 3 there in Dallas with Luka, Kristaps, and Giannis, something there. You get the Suns. The Suns were really good at the end there. If they can keep it together for a full year, they're definitely contenders. You get the Clippers with a coach that won't have chemistry issues with the players. So that's another team you got to worry about. And then you get the Rockets without House, because I think the Rockets would have pushed that series to 7 if they had House. Now they won't have D'Antoni, so there's a big question mark there. We don't even know who their coach is going to be. But they're definitely somebody that they can definitely be a team that can, disrupt the Lakers. So the West is just loaded. I didn't even mention the Nuggets. I forgot about the Denver Nuggets. They can easily add another player, and Jokic and Murray are only going to be getting better. They're not getting any worse. And next year, the biggest thing is LeBron had a 5-month rest.
Yeah.
We haven't seen LeBron play at this level in 5 years, and that's because he was able to have this rest off. I honestly believe he's going to have a short off season this year because his team went the longest. I don't see him playing a lot of games next year. I see him taking a lot of games off, kind of.
Well, I think it's going to be a shortened year, if I had to guess. I bet you it'll be like that lockout year. Would be like 50.
It probably will be, because they probably will be starting in January. Would be my guess. January 1st would be probably the start of the season. But I mean, it's going to be a shortened off season. I think LeBron's getting older. He's going to have a little health issues. I wouldn't be surprised if that groin injury that he keeps saying he has reappears. Maybe he needs surgery. Maybe something happens. I don't know. There's definitely an injury risk with Bron because we've seen it the past couple years. I truly believe if they didn't have that 5-month break, I think LeBron would have been worn out by the point he got here. But, I mean, we saw he was just rejuvenated after this break, and that really helped them. There won't be a break next year. I can guarantee that. There will not be a 5-month break for LeBron to rest mid-season before the playoffs. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors going up against them. So, I don't see it. I don't think they repeat. There's just too many other good teams.
Like I said, I still think regardless of what happens this offseason, the Lakers are going to have 2 of the arguably top 5 players in the NBA still coming back next season. And to be honest, I think actually this shortened season works for LeBron's favor. He's not going to have to play 82 games. He's going to play like 40 games because they're going to play 50, and he'll probably play 40 of them. So I don't think he's going to be too worn out by the playoffs. Now, it depends. I mean, there's so many different ways that they're thinking about starting to see. There's like Christmas. There's like Martin Luther King Day. Like, that date is a big factor because then it's like, is it 2 months, or is it 3 months, or is it 3.5 months? So there's still a lot more to figure out. And obviously it won't be a bubble again because I don't think the player's going to commit to 6 months in the bubble. I know I would not if I was a player. I think even 3 months, what they were at, that was a lot, And I highly doubt the NBA would agree on that. They probably cancel the season before they do that again. We'll see what happens with everything in the world. But I just generally think that actually this is sort of a beneficial thing. The Lakers are going to come back with the same core in a 40 to 50 game season. And I mean, the playoffs are going to be way different next year. I mean, I think we all kind of missed the energy of the playoffs this year. It wasn't the same, and that'll be really exciting to watch, but especially, getting a higher seed is important. And I think that number 1 seed would have been more important with the fans than it was this offseason. We saw the Heat 5 seed get all the way up there. So the seeding will be important, but I still think the Lakers will repeat right now. There's still a lot more, though, to happen. I predicted the Lakers to win the championship as soon as they got AD in the last offseason. But, obviously that could have changed with a couple different things this season, and a lot of things went the Lakers' way this season. Can't say that they did it, so maybe next year something won't. But right now they got to be the prohibitive favorite, unless, barring something drastic happening this offseason, I still think that they remain the favorite far into next season.
Yeah. They definitely have a good chance to repeat, and I'm assuming they'd definitely be the favorites right now. So moving on right now to the NFL. We're going to talk about the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers took down the Philadelphia Eagles 38-29 this past weekend, and they're now 4-0. So this brings up the question, I guess, Justin, are the Steelers the best team in the AFC?
Record-wise, I think they could possibly be the team that ends up undefeated the longest, but they are no way the best team in the NFC. There's not a chance. First off, the Kansas City Chiefs are still in the AFC, and they are by far the best team in football, and they just added a very good running back, in my opinion. So, I mean, we'll talk about that later, but I think the Chiefs are by far the number one team. Now, could you say they're second? I think you can make a case for them being the second best team in the AFC. I think you can make a strong case for that, but after watching that Eagles game, I thought the Steelers were going to be good because of their defense. I thought they had the best defense in football. And watching my Philadelphia Eagles put up 29 points on that number one defense with our third-string left tackle, third-string right tackle, third-string right guard, and second-string left guard with our top three wide receivers out, and we were still able to put up 29 points on that so-called number one defense. Travis Fulgham went for 12 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown. Like, that just really concerns me about the Steelers, because that really should have never happened. I mean, I was expecting that game to be more of a 21-17, not anywhere near as high scoring as it was. That Steelers defense really let me down. The bright spot was Chase Claypool, though, so I think the Steelers offense is better than I and many expected. But, I mean, that defense was really disappointing, and I don't think you can say they're the best team in the AFC after giving up 29 points to the practice squad Philadelphia Eagles offense.
I completely disagree with everything you just said, so I'm going to get into it right now. I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and this is not even biased, though.
Yes.
I think if you look at the first 4 weeks, there's no team that's been better than the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's kind of undisputable. First of all,
opponents have 2 wins combined.
Doesn't matter.
2 wins combined.
We won every game, and we're right now. And so I want to talk about the defense first. I want to talk about the defense first. Right now, we are on pace to break the Chicago Bears record for sacks in a season.
The Colts are better.
We're going to break that record probably. So, look,
okay, well, how about you worry about breaking the lowest points allowed record instead of sacks, because you can get as many sacks as you want.
Let me get to the Eagles.
But then if you give up it was a perfect example of why the Steelers defense is flawed. They sacked Wentz on 2 straight plays and had a 3rd and 20, and he Wentz threw a dot over the middle right to Travis Fulgham for a 25-yard catch. I mean, you can get as many sacks as you want, but if you're not getting 3 sacks in a row, what's going to happen? The secondary is going to let up a big play like they did.
Look, I want to say this about Travis Fulgham. First of all, there's no film on this guy. No one knew who the hell he was. And
he had a great game last week. He was great.
That one catch. He had the one catch. I mean, come on.
3 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. There's film on the guy. He played.
We put our worst
snaps that week.
We put our worst defenders on him. We didn't even double team him, even when he was catching all those passes. And it was a bad defensive output by us on Travis Fulgham. He just destroyed us. He was the only guy who was killing us. You know, Sanders had that one big run, but other than that, we stopped him at the line of scrimmage pretty much every play.
I mean, we didn't run the ball. We were throwing it because it was wide open.
Didn't run the ball. And you know, I think it's sort of just outlandish to say that, Fulgham went off, so that, you know, every great defense is going to have a bad game or two. You know, you can't be perfect every single game, but every other game over the Eagles, the Steelers' defenses looked like the best defense in the league. And T.J. Watt did get hurt in the fourth quarter of that Eagles game, right when they started driving down the field, so Wentz had a lot more time to throw. And our secondary did not do a good
realize that
job.
was way after Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson left at the end of the first quarter, so he was in there for 2 quarters against our backup right tackle. And he still couldn't do anything.
He did. I mean, we did eventually get to Wentz, and you know, we had it. I mean, Mike Hilton caught those 2 interceptions. Steven Nelson, though, he was struggling.
That one was BS.
The one was a BS one.
Check. Yeah.
And honestly, the first one wasn't Wentz's fault either. I believe it was a tip ball.
It was.
I'm not 100%.
It was on. I think it was Bud Dupree tipped it.
Bud Dupree tipped it, and it was caught. So those are picks that you can't really blame Wentz for. And I actually think Wentz has been far too heavily critiqued this year. I think he's played better than what his stats have shown. I've seen a lot of his throws that are just unlucky. The one that was picked off, I forget which one it was, but it was like caught, juggled, and then intercepted. I don't know which week it was against the Eagles were playing. I was like, wow, geez, that's just unlucky. But no, I still think we're the best team in the AFC. I think that everybody like you and Joey and all these other people were saying that the Steelers offense wasn't even in the top half of the league. But I think we have a top 5 offense. I believe we have a top 5 offense right now. We have a quarterback. Big Ben's playing the best best statistical football of his career. He's not turning the ball over. He's got 10 touchdowns in 4 games. He's playing outstanding. Chase Claypool, hell, he might be the offensive rookie of the year. I mean, we might have the offensive rookie of the year in Chase
How did he do the rest of the games when Nate Gary wasn't guarding him? Because when Nate Gary's not guarding him, he's a below-average rookie.
He had that 80-yard touchdown 2 weeks ago.
That's one catch. That doesn't make him a good player. Offensive rookie of the year. What about C.D. Lamb? C.D. Lamb has been doing this every single week.
I'll take Claypool over Lamb any day of the week. He's the next Megatron.
C.D. Lamb has been averaging 5 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown every week.
Claypool's the next Megatron. Mapletron is what we've been calling him, and I think he's going to be better than Megatron. He's a little faster than Megatron too. I mean, this
played a banged-up Eagles secondary, dude. That is absolutely nothing. How has he done against the rest of the league? He's been bad.
He got an 80-yard touchdown, and he did one play in his first 2 games.
One play.
But the snap count, he finally got to play. Unfortunately, Deontay got hurt. You finally got to unleash this guy, and he just wreaked havoc, and it was unbelievable. And I think he'll continue to wreak havoc. I think hopefully we play him more than James Washington more in the slot and on the wing, rather than having, Washington out there. I think if you have Juju, Deontay, and Chase Claypool out there, hell, that might be the best wide receiver core in football. And then you also got maybe even the best running back. I mean, we have 3 backs who can go for 100 yards with McFarland, with Snell, with
bias. This is not
Connor.
Snell anymore.
I'll give you Connor, but Snell can't do that. Snell did it once against the New York Football Giants, who are terrible. That's one of the worst run defenses in the league. So you can't even use that as an argument.
And Eric Ebron,
just so biased.
Even though Ebron's disappointed me a little bit, he had a terrible, terrible fumble late last game that almost cost us. He almost had 2 fumbles, actually. So that was sad. But even so, he's been pretty solid for us, and we still got Vance McDonald. We still got, in my opinion, one of the best tight end groups now in the league as well there. And I think we got a top 5 quarterback. So this is a top 5 offense and the best defense.
Top 5. Wait, well, who are the 4 quarterbacks you have above him right now?
Okay,
you think he's 5? Well, you say he's top 5. He may not be 5. He's just in the top 5. So give me the other 4 quarterbacks in the top 5.
So I'd say right now I give you Mahomes, I give you Wilson, I'll give you Rodgers, and I'll give you Allen. And then I'm going to go with Big Ben at 5. That's what I would go with Dak out. I think Dak would be almost top 5 if he was playing the way he was playing this year.
Dak was certainly top 5. You could definitely make a case for I think Derek Carr has actually been a better quarterback than Big Ben has been when you really look at the numbers. Derek Carr is leading that Raiders team. He went into Kansas City and upset the Chiefs. I mean,
it's a good game, but he's more of a game manager.
Yes, but that's exactly what Big Ben is. Big Ben is a game manager.
I think
Big Ben is top 10, but he is not top 5. No way.
Okay, we got to move on from this. This is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a little biased there.
Absolutely.
The stats prove it.
There is no way you can tell me that the
I don't think we lose a game until Thanksgiving.
I think he lose this weekend.
No.
You saw what Travis Fulgham did to you. What do you think OBJ, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper?
Well, I'm okay.
What do you think they're going to do to you?
If my offense is for 40 points, we're fine.
Okay. You're ridiculous.
Move on.
Yeah, let's move on. As we know, yesterday, former All-Pro running back Le'Veon Bell signed a 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, trying to make a big impact on that team. So, Jake, how much of an impact does this have on the Kansas City Chiefs?
I would have said it had a big impact, but they're already so loaded on the offensive side of the football. I think this is actually sort of an overrated move because they already are loaded on offense. That's not been their problem. Their problem on Sunday was their defense. They were getting absolutely, ran off the field by the Oakland Raiders in that game with Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr both exploding on them for 40 points. And they had a nice young back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, obviously it's going to take a lot of pressure off him. He won't be carrying the ball 25 times a game. And it gives him a guy who can also catch the ball out of the backfield, which Helaire is not really a huge pass-catching back, but Le'Veon Bell, as we know, is. And he's still got a lot left in the tank. He's still good. He's just been on a bad team. So I think he helps their offense a little bit, but I don't think it's like, oh, my God, now it's not like the NBA where you're adding a guy into the starting lineup that's going to just make you guys that much better. I mean, you're adding a guy on one side of the ball, but the other side of the ball is a huge problem for them, and that's going to be the biggest problem. And that's why, I just said it. I think the Steelers are the best team in the AFC because we got the best defense and we got a top 5 offense. The Chiefs might have a little bit better of an offense than us, but their defense is nowhere near it. When it comes down to it, in a game against the Steelers, I think we win that game because of our defense. And because of our offense and our defense, because we're going to be able to slow their offense down enough, and their defense is not going to be able to stop us. They haven't been able to stop anybody. So I think the Chiefs are a little overrated. I don't think they're the best team in the AFC, and I don't really think this move really helps them move the chains at all. It probably just helps their offense depth a little bit. I mean, if something happened to Allaire, they would have been kind of screwed at running back. Now they got insurance there, but other than that, I really don't see how this is a big move.
I disagree. I mean, I think this is a great move for the Kansas City Chiefs. They got him on the cheaps. They really didn't have to worry about paying him anything, and it gives them depth. With COVID, you don't really know what's going to happen. If CEH did get contracting COVID, now they have an above-average replacement for him. And not only is he a replacement player, he can line up in the backfield and catch passes. He is one of the best pass-catching running backs in this decade for a running back, and he can line up in the slot and play slot wide receiver. We've seen Sammy Watkins deal with injuries. He has been a pretty good slot wide receiver there for the Chiefs, but I mean, now this gives you another dimension. You can line Bell up in this slot, and he can catch passes from there as well. We saw that a lot with the Steelers. The Steelers like to go empty set, spread everyone out on the offensive side, and have Bell line up in the slot. I could see the Chiefs doing a lot of that because they like to have – Patrick Mahomes loves to have the field wide open. Travis Kelce playing out wide with Hill. I think that's a really good move for them. I think it's a good fit. And we've seen under Andy Reid what running backs have done. Look at LaShawn McCoy, Brian Westbrook, just to name a few. And I saw even last year they had a good depth on running back with the two Williams and Thompson. They had a good running back trio there as well that they like to use. So they clearly don't really like to use a bell cow back there. So I think it's just a good all-around move. He's great in pass blocking as well. Lev Bell is one of the best pass blockers for a running back. So I think if somebody tries to blitz Mahomes, he's going to be good enough to pick it up and block sufficiently. So I think it's just an all-around good move. Gives them more depth. You never know what's going to happen this season. And if anything does happen, it gives them another option and just proves, once again, why they have the best offense in football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a pretty solid move. Hopefully he can get back into that, shape he was when he was in Pittsburgh, but who knows. So sticking with football, as we know, Dak Prescott had a very gruesome, devastating injury last week against the Giants. He's okay. His surgery went well. That's very good. It was a very bad injury, and our prayers go out to him. But with Dak being out, Justin, who do you think takes the NFC East title?
It's tough to say at this moment because we haven't seen how Andy Dalton will play. I think Andy Dalton's definitely a serviceable backup. But they weren't winning games with Dak Prescott, and there's definitely a drop-off between Dak and Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton's a good backup, probably above-average backup. But, I mean, they weren't winning games with Dak, and I think Dak's a top 10 quarterback. Andy Dalton probably, if he was a starting quarterback in your ranking, he'd probably be around 25. There's definitely a big drop-off there if you were just ranking quarterbacks. There's definitely a drop-off, and they weren't winning games with Dak. It's going to come down to, can the Philadelphia Eagles stay healthy? Because if they're continuing to run out a practice squad offense, I don't think they can win this division. I think they're realistically going to win 6 games. And I don't think the Redskins win any games with Alex Smith starting at quarterback. He just didn't look right. And when you look at the Giants, without Saquon, they have nothing on the offensive side of the ball. And their defense is atrocious. So it's going to come down to the Eagles and Cowboys. I'm curious to see how Andy Dalton does because there's definitely a drop-off. The Cowboys' defense has been very underwhelming this year. Just what happens when you use your first-round pick on a wide receiver when you already have a great wide receiving core. So, I mean, I'm just torn. I don't want to pick the Eagles because I don't think the Eagles can do it because I think they're going to get hurt again. But as of right now, I got to go with the Eagles. If they get Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson back with Jalen Reagor, with Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward, that's a solid wide receiving core. Carson Wentz as well. And Brandon Brooks is talking about coming back within the next 2 months now after his injury. So, I mean, you could look at it in addition to the offensive line, giving Sanders some more holes. The defense, you get Will Parks back, so you don't have to see any more Nate Gary. I just think the Eagles probably win 7 to 8 games, and I think the Cowboys will be right around the same. I actually think this half game from the tie is going to be what gets them into the playoffs. I think that's what wins them the division. I think they end up going – they'll probably win 7 games. They'll probably go 7-8-1 with the Cowboys finishing with 6 wins. That would be my prediction.
It's such a toss-up. I mean, I agree with that. I think 6 games wins this division, which is crazy. I mean, I cannot believe that. Honestly, I wish they would not crown a champion in the division this year. I think that the team should get in and get like the last playoff seed. If you win, you get a home playoff game. I mean, it's kind of crazy that 6 games can do that for you. I don't even know if that's ever happened. Has any team ever won the division with 6 games?
I think once it may have happened.
I
know it's happened at 7. 7 and
Yeah.
9 has gotten in a couple times. But I don't know I think 6 may have once. But I think they may have had 2 ties in the year, maybe. I don't remember.
Well, it all depends on your guys' health. If you guys can get healthy, you guys are way better than the Cowboys. And we saw it on Sunday. You guys played us really hard. I mean, I got to give you guys credit for that. You guys never gave up. And that defense, even though it's beaten down, so is that offense. You guys fought to the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to say the Eagles, but I can't base it off the health. Based on the health that I'm seeing for both teams right now, I just think the Cowboys are going to get in barely. I think it's going to be like 7-9 or 6-10. And I just don't know if the Eagles can get fully healthy enough to really win this division. Especially, I mean, I hope they beat the Ravens this week, and that'd be a big game for them. But right now, I just have to go with the Cowboys just because of, I know they lost Dak, but they got a good backup. Andy Dalton's solid. I think Andy Dalton is a 6 to 7 win quarterback in general with this team. I think with Dak, they would have definitely won this division, which is shocking because they really should be better than this, but their defense is just so bad.
Terrible.
They just make any adjustment on defense, they'll win a lot of these games. Even with Dalton, I think Dalton can get this. This offense is loaded, so they could easily still score over 30 a game. But I got to go with the Cowboys right now. It's going to be close. I think that decision could easily depend on the health. But looking at the Eagles' health right now with so much uncertainty, it's really hard to pick them. It's really, really hard to pick you guys to win this division right now. So I got to go with Dallas. But I think definitely things could change. It's just right now I have to go with Dallas because of your guys' health.
It's definitely going to come down to when the Eagles and Cowboys play because they play twice.
Oh yeah, I agree. I just think if the Eagles aren't fully healthy by then they're going to probably lose that game because I think isn't the big one in Dallas this year.
Yeah,
the Week 16 game.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at it, Dak won't be back by that game, so you don't have to worry about that.
No,
but
he's done.
It's going to just depend on the health because we don't have much depth. We're already playing with our backups, and we have a tough schedule because we did finish first in the NFC East last year. So we do have a tougher schedule than the Cowboys. Yeah. But if we can get Rieger, Jeffrey, and Jackson back, I think that will spark our offense. And we'll
Brooks,
get back
if somehow Brooks comes back.
If Brooks can come back and Lane Johnson can get healthy, as long as we have that right side intact, it'll be good. I mean, we got Jordan Mailata, 7th-round rugby player playing at left tackle. Now, he looked great on Bud Dupree. He kind of shut him down. I was pleasantly surprised by that. But, I mean,
he did do a good job on Bud.
You can't really expect anything out of it. So, my expectations are just so low right now. I think they're going to only win 6 games. But then it's just going to come down to how can the Cowboys do if that defense will step it up at all. I don't think it will. I think the Eagles probably win 7 games and get in. That would be my guess. But it's going to come down to health again. I don't know what it is with Doug Peterson and Eagles. Maybe it's their way they're training, something about it. But they are consistently hurt. It's every year, multiple positions. It's not the same position.
They need a new athletic trainer.
Line and wide receiver. We already got a new athletic trainer this year. So it's clearly not that. I don't know what it is, but we need to fix something because maybe it's diets or something. Because I will say the one thing under Chip Kelly, he made them all drink the protein shakes, and we never had any injuries. But I don't know. It'll be tough. I do think the Eagles win this weekend. I think we're a good matchup for the Ravens.
I agree.
If Will Parks plays, I think he can be much better than Nate Gary will be on Mark Andrews. But he can play. He will kind of limit Mark Andrews a bit, and I think Slay will totally take out Hollywood Brown. So it's going to be them running the ball with Lamar, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, I think if the Eagles can get a lead in this game and force Lamar to throw the football, good things will happen for the Eagles. But if they're letting Lamar run all over them, it's going to be a rough day. It could definitely be a 21-10, 28-10 win for them.
Yeah. Well, the Ravens don't play good behind, so if you start early against them, you got a chance. That's what's going to have to happen. Because if you guys are playing from behind, there's no stopping Lamar with all these backups. But that's why I think the Eagles have a chance. If you can just jump ahead of this Ravens team, I don't think Lamar's as good as he was last year. Even though I think he's still solid this year, he's definitely fallen off. I think teams have sort of figured him out a little bit. I still think he's a fantastic quarterback. But I just don't think he's not what he was last year because everybody was like, whoa, out of nowhere, this guy was able to throw, medium-level passes. But now, playing from behind, we've seen the offense kind of gets screwed up for them because they can't run it as much. They got to throw more. And that's what the Eagles got to do. And the Eagles got a lot of pressure on Big Ben last week. So if they can get some pressure on Lamar and rough him up a little bit, I definitely think they have a good shot. But like I said, if the Eagles were healthy, I thought they'd be a shoo-in for the playoffs. But because they're not, it's just so hard to predict it.
Mm-hmm. And like you said with Lamar, people always said I was too critical of Lamar, but this is kind of how I saw Lamar Jackson. He's a good quarterback around 4 through 7, I think. But, I mean, he just has too many flaws in his game. He can't carry a team back into the game, and that's why I think Lamar was overrated last year because everyone was saying, oh, he's the number 2 quarterback behind Mahomes. And some people would say he was the best quarterback in the league. He is not that high. I know you had said Russell Wilson was worse than him. You thought Lamar was better than Russell Wilson. I thought that was crazy back then. But, I mean, I think Lamar is probably 4 through 7. Somewhere in that range would be fair for Lamar.
Yeah, this division is a real toss-up. I mean, Eagles can't stay healthy. Cowboys have a terrible defense. Both teams suck. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully the Eagles got the advantage at quarterback, I think, a little. But we'll see how it goes. But last topic I wanted to talk about today, Tom Brady and the Bucs face Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers on America's Game of the Week on Sunday on Fox. And should be a really great game to dive into, and I want to talk about it a little bit right now. So, Jake, who do you think wins this game?
I mean, this one's really a toss-up for me, and I think it definitely comes down to if Chris Godwin can get on the field, because I think if he gets on the field, and I think he will, based on what I've been reading, and I think if he gets on the field, I think the Buccaneers win this game. It's a home game for them. Florida, unlike many other states, is actually opening up their attendance. Like, they're going to have almost full attendance on Sunday, which is crazy, but it's a huge advantage for them. And I think that's going to play a bigger factor than people realize. And I think the Packers are going to struggle in this game, coming off the bye. I mean, the Bucs basically had a bye because they played that Thursday game, so they've had extra rest. And I think that Tom Brady's going to come out a little bit angry after that huge blunder on 4th down against the Bucs. Against the Bears, where he forgot what down it was. I mean, that's got to definitely heighten up him. I think he's going to play a really good game. And I think the Buccaneers defense is a little underrated. I think they're pretty solid. So they're going to definitely give Rodgers a little bit of a tough time. I think both quarterbacks play really well. I think it's probably a higher scoring game. I'm going to go Buccaneers 31, Packers 28. That's what I'm feeling right now. Now, if Godwin doesn't play, I'd probably flip that score. But with Godwin scheduled to play right now, I'm taking the Bucs and Tom Brady in a bounce-back game. I think the Packers get their first loss.
Yeah, so it's an interesting game because there are a lot of injuries and a lot of question marks right now as to who's going to be playing. We've seen Devontae Adams has been full participant, so it looks like he's going to play. And that is the reason I'm picking the Packers right now. I mean, I think if Devontae Adams does play, I think they're at an advantage because we've seen Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams just have this magical connection. And they have Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams out of the backfield, and you get Scantling out there as well. They just have more weapons, I think, than in the injured Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers have a solid team, but you're going to have a limited Mike Evans. You're going to have a limited Leonard Fournette, limited Chris Godwin. I don't know. I just can't trust them because I think they're going to be banged up. Like we saw, Fournette ended up being active last week, but he didn't even play. And Scotty Miller didn't really do much. He was kind of taken out of the game. So I think I got to go with the Packers in this one. I do think the Packers pull it off. I think they win. They stay undefeated. I got them winning a game, probably 31-24.
I do think it's going to be close, regardless of who wins. I think it's
Definitely
going to be a good game.
Yeah, this should be a great game. America's Game of the Week on Fox, 4:25. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman.
Best duo.
Love the crew. So last topic I want to talk about, the MLB playoffs are. We're almost at the World Series. We got the ALCS, we got the Rays and the Astros, with the Rays up 3-2 as the Astros have taken the last 2 games, trying to run the table right now and make it back to the World Series. And we have the Los Angeles Dodgers, who seem to be struggling right now against the Braves. I mean, their bats were red hot in Game 3, and they went to complete shit.
Yeah, 11 runs in 1 inning.
So I want to know what you guys think, and who you think is going to make it out of the AL and NL. So, Justin, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, so far the biggest thing has been the Braves pitching. I mean, outside their game yesterday, or their game 2 nights ago when the Dodgers put up 11 runs in the first inning, the Braves pitching has been lights out, and nobody really expected that. When you thought of the Atlanta Braves, you thought poor pitching and a great offense behind Acuna and Freeman, and they were just going to be loaded on the offensive end, and they put up a lot of runs. But so far this postseason, the Atlanta Braves had the best pitching staff out of anyone, and that's just kind of crazy to think about because nobody really expected that. And I honestly think that will go away. I think Atlanta does blow it. The city of Atlanta will blow another 3-1 lead, and I think the Dodgers come back and win that. And I do think the Rays hold on. I think the Rays bullpen is just much better than any pitcher really on the Astros. I think the Rays can go to their bullpen. Meanwhile, the Astros will be struggling because they'll be throwing anyone they can. I just think they have more depth, and they will outlast the Astros in this series. I think that 3-0 lead was just too much for the Astros to come back from. I think if it was a 3-1 lead, I think the Astros have a good chance.
Yeah,
But
it's
to
too
win
exhausting.
4 games in a
straight.
row back against the wall, I think the Rays could do it because they just have so much depth in pitching. I mean,
Yeah.
their starting rotation is one of the best, and their bullpen is definitely the best in baseball. So when you look at that, they have the depth. I'm not sold on the Astros pitching. Their offense has been good. George Springer's been hitting a lot of bombs. Same with Correa. Altuve's looked really bad. He's been brutal. But the rest of the team's been hitting decently. I'm just worried about the depth of their pitching. I don't know if they have it. I don't know if they have enough to make the full 3-0 comeback. So I think the Rays win tonight, and I think the Dodgers do make the comeback. And I think it's going to be a Rays-Dodgers I think the Dodgers win the World Series.
I actually agree with everything you said. I mean, this is just what I want. I mean, I don't want to see the Astros back in the World Series. I think they should have had their ring taken away because they cheated. And the poor Dodgers were unfortunately the non-beneficiaries of that. And I think they deserve it. I mean, we know Kershaw's choked in different series without cheating involved, and he could choke again. But I still think the Braves probably win the series, even though I'd like to see the Dodgers in. So I think we're probably looking at Braves and Rays. And that'll be a hell of a series. I think the Rays might win it all, which would be amazing because Tampa Bay would then have Stanley Cup champions, and also they would have MLB champions. And I mean, with that 1-2 punch, Snell and Glasnow, I mean, their pitching staff is outstanding. Their relief pitchers are great.
Charlie Morton too.
Charlie Morton. I mean, they're a good team, but I'd love to see the Dodgers do it just because for Kershaw. And
everything they went to against the Astros.
And everything that they would have to go through to come back. So that's what I would hope for. But if I had to think about it realistically, it'll probably be Braves and Rays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a very interesting season. But all I got to say is I remember when I was a guest on your show, I predicted these Astros to be back in the ALCS.
Yeah, you did.
You called me crazy.
Now, I think a lot of factors played into that, such as the shortened season and the fans.
They were not very good in the regular season, but they did step it up in the postseason. But it's going to be tough for them to come back these next 2 games, especially if Blake Snell pitches and, they already used Greinke, so they're kind of weak on the pitching staff. So it should be interesting. And we should see if the Dodgers can come back. Their bats have been not very good except for Game 3.
No.
They were incredible Game 3, but other than that, they've not been very good. Yes, the Braves have a good pitching rotation, but, I mean, this is the LA show. Like, this is the team that everyone projected to be so great. They are so great, but hopefully they can come back from this deficit 3-1. So that's going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You guys both did sparked some good debates. A little bit of bias over there on Jake's end, but that's okay. So make sure you follow us on our social media, and we'll see you again soon.